how do you translate application architectures into network models? Is there a tool we could use with maybe a GUI to describe a network model that meets application requirements? The tool should be able to describe things like server groups, zones like a DMZ, and allow traffic between the server groups and L7 requirements. Could ACI or NSX be this tool? Other suggestions. Now, when we had discussed this in the back channels, the AMA panel, no one wanted this one. And I think the answer is because this is a difficult question. There isn't anything that magically is going to take an application architecture and turn it into a network model. So one point here about ACI that was suggested as a possible tool, or NSX that was suggested as a possible tool, or even Anuta, which we just saw. When you are dealing with application architectures, you are abstracting a set of communications parameters, if you will, the different components that need to talk to each other. You have the client-server communications, what the client view is coming into the network and what that looks like. You have all the back-end communications that need to happen. And the reason I don't think there is a tool that just can take this application architecture and turn it into a network model is that requires a lot of human understanding to be able to build that out. And so I believe it is incumbent on the human to understand the application and then be able to translate what that application set of requirements are into a network design. And then there should be a group of people that are thinking that through, that are reviewing that, and can understand that at a deeper level. Could you use ACI to express this? Well, I mean, the acronym is application-centric infrastructure, if I remember right, or something close to that. The idea of it certainly being a network-centric expression of an application and how it needs to intercommunicate. And so, yeah, a lot of the constructs in ACI are designed that way. Is it going to ingest some sort of information, automatically dump out what your network model should look like? No, you're going to be doing a lot of those definitions yourself. The same thing with NSX, where you're going to be building, policies that make that happen. And again, I'm not aware of a tool that will do it for you automatically. It's really a job for someone who understands both applications deeply and network architecture deeply. And it gets even more complicated in the modern era because many of these application deployments are hybrid. There is a local on-premises deployment, and then there's a public cloud component to this as well that you need to be able to express in a logical way too. Okay, I've done my monologue. Do any of you want to add to that? Jump on anything I said?
Yeah, now that we have a clear understanding that you can't just magically create a network model or an architecture based on some application, and you do need some human input, I think we're certainly heading in the direction that once that input is there, that there is much greater and growing autonomy in the network spitting back out, to use your words, a model based on that input. So we're reducing that amount of effort. Now, whether that's through some GUI that we can name, that's different. But that's a lot of the dream of SDN, and specifically IBN, intent-based networking, where we have identified applications and specific behaviors that are associated with those applications. Right? We instruct the network on what that looks like. And then once we introduce that, later on when we say, okay, this is what we're going to be doing with the network is able to then say, based on that, which in IBM we call reference architectures, this is how configuration should look. So I think that we are headed in that direction to an extent, maybe a small extent, with the caveat that Ethan said that certainly there is some human intervention where there's intelligence that needs to be added from our perspective, saying this is what the application is supposed to look like in the first place. Now go do it. Does that make sense? I don't want to cross threads or cross streams between IBN and what they're saying, but there does seem to be some overlap.
I took you to mean, Phil, and correct me if I'm wrong, I took you to mean that where IBN, intent-based networking, is headed is it could be used as an abstraction layer, if you will, to help you deploy network infrastructure that supports a particular application architecture.
beyond could be. That's, I think, the exact goal of IBN is to do just that. But there needs to be some intervention at the outset to define what applications are supposed to look like as far as their behavior on a network. So this application is X, Y, Z, and this is how it's supposed to function. This is the kind of priority we give it, whatever. But yeah, no, that's exactly what the purpose of IBN is going to be long term.
Yeah, another tool that was just raised in our chat here is Cisco Tetration. And yeah, thank you for the reminder on that. We've actually had them on the show before to talk through this. Tetration will examine flows that are on the network and make an inference of what security policy should look like between endpoints and help you to deploy that, particularly in an ACI environment. Although the comment was also made, reassuringly expensive. Carol, what was your thought?
Yeah, there's a company called AppData.
Yep.
I mean, like applications and networks, and the name kind of merges together. And I think part of their thing is to measure web apps and software as a service across your network. And so it involves probes. And I mean, so I don't know if it answers your specific question, but maybe you're really looking at how do we address applications on our network and how do we monitor the user experience we're getting out of it.
Yeah, AppNet has been on packet pushers as well. They were talking in an SD-WAN context, but right, they do a lot of things, Carol. I agree, they might be worth investigating in that space as well. Yeah. Okay, that was a big kind of a question. Any more suggestions before we move on here? Okay.
Well, if I can throw this in, I'm just reading the question over to myself here. The last part of it, the tool should be able to describe server groups, zones, including DMZ, allowed traffic. I mean, they're asking, could this be ACI or NSX? Could that be the tool? I mean, that's what ACI and NSX do. That's exactly what they do. You know, your endpoint groups and all that stuff. So,
yeah, but again, going back to the human part, Phil, it's they won't do it for you. Well, I guess you could argue that Tetration would do it for you. It certainly gives you a baseline, but anyway.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say that they do it for you, right? But as far as a GUI is something that you can log into to organize your the network according to the application in that way, that does it. No tips to pass on though.